I love the fact that earlier, you said the word cocky, right? And you also mentioned petty, right? Which I think are sometimes things that are negatively used to describe people. But in your case, right, cocky to me is just a confidence in understanding who I am, what I bring, and how hard I will work. And petty is not, oh, I'm gonna be petty and do immature things. Yeah. It's that when I hear I can't, or when I'm not given the helping hand I think I should receive, that I'm still gonna make it, and you'll see in the end that I'll work. What is it about you though, because you mentioned opportunity as well. What is it about you that's allowed you to capitalize on the opportunities you were given?
I think it's a lot. To your point about cocky, when I first left that show, and the first person who wanted to do this talk show with me was Harvey Weinstein. Okay. We know Harvey Weinstein is in prison for assaults and heinous crimes. And this was prior to, 8 months before he was charged. I would be in rooms with him, and I watch other male executives fawn over him and want his attention and want his ear and pitch their ideas while he was pitching me. And I'm sitting there at the time, okay, I accomplished some things. I had MSNBC's show, I had Deadline Crime, and all these things. And I understood why they were trying to get Harvey's ear, but he would, every meeting, stop and say, we're not here about me, we're about her. And I would have to do my pitch. And even though I was on TV for 20 years, some of these people had never seen me. They could tell you every white female that they had a crush on, but they could never tell you what I'd done or accomplishments. And so I would honestly channel every hip hop artist I ever loved. I really would. And so I would go in like, well, I'm about to do this. What are you talking about? And they didn't know me. Well, I'm sitting like this, all prim and proper, and just all kinds of things are exploding in my head to muster the cockiness that women deserve to have and that we don't. We talk amongst each other very cocky, but then we'll get in rooms and shrink down. And so I worked on that, and it's been deliberate that I maintain the humility that I think is natural to me, but I can channel, as Beyonce said, her Sasha Fierce. You don't want to be in a meeting with me. You don't want to negotiate with me, because I win every negotiation, every negotiation. Right. I had to find that. The petty part, why I am willing to so openly talk about the previous job experience and what happened to me there, is so that maybe the people who made that decision won't do that again. It's less about me. It's more about, maybe you bet on the other horse. Maybe the horse you think is on the field or whatever, the winner, is not the winner. I've been the underdog my entire life. 19-year-old single mom. Grandfather was my first father. I know what it feels like to be the underdog. And we have to remind people, in our pettiness, sometimes the underdog wins. And maybe you shouldn't look past that person and say what they cannot do, because you don't know. And so that's why I call it out. Not because I know I won that. Even if the show wasn't a success, even if the Tamron Hall show was, I left with my dignity. I left there that day saying, I will never grovel for a job. I will figure it out. And so for me, I bring it up in hopes that another news director, another general manager, another person in the executive suite, they don't fall for what someone says is the star. They look for the person who is the star, not the anointing of someone.
I wanted to ask you about Weinstein. Because my dad, Jerry Sandusky at Penn State, that was, like you say, heinous crimes.
I covered that one.
And my father played under Jerry Sandusky and then went back to Penn State after his NFL career and coached under him and would be on the road with him recruiting for months. And when the story came out, I had to call Pops and say, Daddy, this was your friend? Yeah. Like, was there ever a sign? Did you ever see anything that you would think this was happening in his basement and the whole story we've heard? Yeah. Like, was there anything, you being that close to Weinstein, any?
Well, that's the trick bag. I knew him 4 months.
Oh.
I knew him 4 months. He sent a note to my agent saying, why can't I get a meeting with Tamron Hall? And my agents called me and said, Harvey Weinstein wants to talk to you about meeting about this show. And I said, sure. And who wouldn't at the time, right? And I went, and I remember vividly coming in. He came out of a side room. My agents were there with me. And there was this big spread of food. And he's like, I got this show idea. And he hit the tape. And he had done his research. He knew all the shows. He knew what he felt was my value in the marketplace. He presented my case to me. And to be honest with you, it was the first time I was in a meeting and I didn't have to pitch myself. He actually pitched the idea to me. I'd never been alone with Harvey. I'd heard that he was like a brute and, bully, and that's how you get things done in Hollywood. But none of those things that happened and clearly were true, I was never exposed to them. But as a woman, one of the unfair things that happened to me, I had people waiting outside my home asking me had I been a victim. I had people calling my phone all night long, not asking me like, how long did you know him or what was it? Like you thoughtfully asked. I had people saying, we heard something happened to you. What happened to you? And first of all, if something had happened to me, is that the way to approach me?
Right.
And second, I only knew the guy for 4 months. We knew of big stars that knew him for way longer. And so it was and I've never given this much detail to anyone, but I trust you guys, and I'll tell you, it was very scary. And it was very hurtful because I thought, what do they want from me? And I don't know. And I refused for a long time to even answer questions about it because I said, you're trying to hold a woman accountable for a man's bad behavior. Go ask him.
Right.
I didn't make $1 with him. My show ended up being bought, thankfully, by a better partner. And I went in after, this is funny, he got me in rooms. And then he went to jail. And then I went back to those rooms saying, you got to meet with me now. You met with me with him.
Right.
I mean, what are you saying? That's the only way I can get in the rooms. I kind of guilted some meetings. I'm like, you met with him then. Right. So I got back in rooms, luck, but being prepared and being a little cocky and calling people out. So I got back in rooms and I repitched the show on my own. But it was very traumatic. To have people want me to answer for someone that I didn't even know.
With an experience like that, and then what happened afterwards with people questioning you, did you ever question yourself or blame yourself and say to yourself, how could I not know these things about someone I've met?
Because I'm not a clairvoyant or a psychic.
Yeah.
None of us know it. Mm-hmm. Listen, 1 in 4 women are the victims of domestic violence and assault. Most women, my sister included, who was murdered in her home by allegedly someone in her life. Most times, women are the victims of crimes. They know the perpetrator. It's many times a guy in their own home. So to say you would know something about someone, let alone a guy who I might have had 5 meetings total, 6 meetings total, and none of them alone. It would be impossible. I wish I had the power to walk through the streets of New York and say, put him behind bars, put him behind bars. Don't ever let him around your child. Don't ever let her. None of us have that ability. Right. How many times have we seen a headline and we know people and you say, oh my God, him?
Right.
Her? It's impossible. So I feel absolutely no guilt. I felt, and I've let it go, heartbreak that people would want me to answer for someone, even if I did know him. He did the crime, make him answer.